Hello, everyone. Welcome to IPWatchdog Unleashed, where each week we journey into the world of intellectual property to discuss the laws, news, policy, and politics of innovation, technology, and creativity. With analysis and commentary from industry thought leaders and newsmakers from around the world, IPWatchdog Unleashed is hosted by world-renowned patent attorney and the founder of IPWatchdog.com, Gene Quinn, who has twice been named one of the most influential people in the intellectual property community and recognized numerous times as one of the top IP strategists in the world. Take it away, Gene.
Thanks, Renee. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this week on this edition of IPWatchdog Unleashed. This week, we have a special conversation. I am joined by the beautiful and talented Renee C. Quinn, who's going to join us for this segment. We're going to talk to Renee. Many of you know Renee if you're in the D.C. area and you've come to our events. You come to our webinars, I'm sure you know Renee. But many of you across the country who haven't had an opportunity to come to our events, even if you know her on the webinars, you know her on our programming online, or maybe you know her through dealing with her with respect to the publication, you don't really know Renee until you really meet Renee. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to have her join us here today. So thanks for being here, Renee.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
That's good. This will be a good conversation. I really appreciate you doing this here today. And I thought maybe we start with something that's probably in the minds of all of our listeners, all of our readers, everybody who's been a part of any IP Watchdog program. How wonderful am I really?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I'd say pretty darn great. I've always been very impressed by just the caliber of programming that you build and the way you bring people together and the way you moderate webinars, and people just really resonate with the way you do things. And it's been fun being a part of the ride with you.
Well, I appreciate that. And particularly since you know you're being recorded, which actually leads me to something that's fun. And we saw over this Christmas season, we were at a party. I don't even remember what it was. It was something that I was right about. And now that's maybe not all that unusual. I'm right a lot. But like every other dad, every other husband in the world, when I'm right, I never get any props. And so when I was right, I always try and get you on video or on recording telling me that I'm right. And not only did you say that I was right, but you said that you were
wrong,
which is amazing. I never thought in a million years I would ever do. So what provoked you to do that?
Well, we've been together 23 years, and I thought, well, I've been holding off on this for a long time, so I'm going to give it to you this time. But yes, I was incorrect, and I do admit it. I just never let you record it.
Well, now you have. And it's sort of funny because I always think about it as like Mega Minds. You remember the movie Mega Minds where he was wrong, the character who was voiced by, who is it, Will Ferrell. Oh. And he was totally wrong about a lot of things. He always would say, you were right and I was slightly less right.
Yes.
So that was my slightly less wrong moment, I guess. So you already mentioned it a little bit. We've been together now for over 23 years. We've been married for 19 years. And you haven't been a part of IP Watchdog since the very beginning, but you've been a part of IP Watchdog for a very long time. In fact, 2026 is your 20th year.
Wow.
Working with IP Watchdog in some capacity. And then I forget when it was exactly when you went full-time, but it wasn't too long after that. So you've been full-time with us probably for about 16, 17 years.
Yeah, since probably 2010.
And even before you started officially working for IP Watchdog as our chief operating officer, you helped with the redesign of the logo, which we still use today, and that version of the website, which we no longer use today, which maybe is a longer story for another time. But you've been involved in IP for a very long time, and I thought maybe it would be interesting to give you an opportunity to talk about a couple things. One is, what did you think IP was, to the extent that you had any thoughts about what it was before you got involved, and maybe even before you met me? I know there's an interesting story, and I can let you tell that if you like. And then what, if anything, has surprised you about being involved in IP or IP Watchdog? So let's start with your journey into IP. What was your knowledge about intellectual property, patents, copyrights, trademarks before you met me?
Well, I didn't know what IP was until you explained it to me, that it was intellectual property, and you said trademarks, copyrights, and I understood what that was. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about it. I knew that the little R in the circle was a registered trademark. And it was funny, after we started dating, then I started looking at everything that we purchased or everywhere we went. There were things I was looking for that registered trademark because it was intriguing to me. But I think what was the most intriguing about it was just the passion that so many people have about their IP, the individual inventors, because in the beginning we worked with a lot of individual inventors, and just the excitement. And I think also what matters is, what was different for me is I didn't realize that I was also innovative in my own way. I was always coming up with ways to do things, and I never knew that that was what intellectual property was. So, I'm a tinkerer. I'm always looking to fix things, and I can fix just about everything. Doesn't mean it's going to continue to work, but, I just have a lot of fun playing with things and figuring out new ways to do things, and I never knew that that was what intellectual property was.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot there to unpack. The story I'll share that you did, and maybe you could comment on it, was when I first moved in with you, and I was teaching at Temple University at the time, and I was building IPWatchdog, and I was teaching nights, which I thought was great because as a law professor, I had a paycheck, I had health benefits, and when they wanted me to teach nights, that was great because then I could spend much of the day into the early afternoon working on IPWatchdog and building that and doing that sort of thing. And at that point in time, it was just, we had a static website like everybody else did, HTML. And we did a weekly newsletter where I summarized every intellectual property case that was decided on every level over the previous week. And I remember you came up to me one time, and I'm working at my computer, and you said, "So what is it that you are actually doing, and how is it that you actually make money?" Because it always seems like you're just playing on your computer. And I don't know that I would say playing on the computer is exactly what I did, but that was always a story that stuck in my mind. So do you know what I do now today?
I do. Mm-hmm. The thing is, at the time when I met you early on, you told me you were a lawyer. People that don't know anything about intellectual property, they don't realize that not all lawyers are created equal. So in my experience, lawyers out there fighting cases or whatever, and you were sitting at your computer, you weren't working with clients. I didn't understand, but yes, I completely understand now. And like I said, I've enjoyed being a part of it with you all these years.
Well, good. And those of you who are hearing any kind of clapping, don't be alarmed. Renee is Italian. So I did try and tell her, you got to keep her hand movements to a minimum and don't clap. And she's clanking the microphone and she's clapping. And she did for a minute. You did for a very brief minute have your hands in your pocket. But I saw you struggling to talk like that.
Well, that goes to another story about us is you have always liked to tease me and say, "I bet if you sit on your hands, you can't talk." I said, "Oh, yes, I can." So one time he had me sit on my hands, and sure enough, I could not find the words.
Yeah. So and I have my own foibles, none of which will come out during this particular podcast, I'm sure. This is all about Renee. And since this is all about you, and you did talk about inventors, and I've worked with inventors for a very long time, and that was the beginning of really IPWatchdog as a company. We've been around online since 1999, but at the very beginning, once I transitioned out of teaching at law school and IPWatchdog was ready to fly as its own company, I did specifically a lot of work for a lot of inventors all over the world. And one of the things that I did develop when I was teaching at Syracuse University was a system that would help individuals create their own provisional patent applications. And we made a lot of money doing that now, not so much because everybody is transitioned into AI, and I get it, and that's great, and more power to them. We did a lot. I filed an application on that invention, and even though it will have been extremely successful from a financial standpoint, the patent office did not see the wisdom in giving me a patent on this process, even though it was extraordinarily successful. Not just financially, as I mentioned, but it really helped inventors and helped them put it in context. And it was based on the belief that when you start to see an application come into shape, now you get it. But when you're staring at a blank screen and you don't know what goes next, it's very intimidating. And I discovered that when I was trying to teach law students how to draft applications. So I wanted to get a patent just because I wanted to get a patent on it, because obviously not having a patent didn't change anything from a financial standpoint, but I wanted to be a patented inventor. Never yet have been a patented inventor. You, on the other hand, are a patented inventor.
I am.
So tell us about your story, what it is that you invented and your journey and why you decided to try and get a patent.
So we have German short-haired pointers, and one of our dogs, Luna, loves to play with balls. And her favorite ball to play with is this round squeaky ball that I throw for her, and it would get really gross and yucky. And so after a while of throwing it, your hands would be all slimy. And so I thought, what can I do to make this better? So I got some rope, and there was a hole in the middle of the ball, which is what caused that squeakiness. And so I was able to put the rope through the ball, and I was able to throw it. The cool part about it, though, was not only was I able to play with her with it, but the other dog, Dusty, played with her as well. He would hold on one end, she would hold on the other. They would tug with it. Dusty would throw it up in the air and catch it. And it was just so fun. And so I was joking around about it being a self-playing ball. And a friend of ours, John White, was here with us. You guys were teaching your course, and I was talking about the ball, and he said, we should try to get a patent on that. And originally he was going to try and get a utility patent, but didn't think that he could. So instead we went and got a design patent.
Well, I will tell you, I poo-pooed the utility patent. I just didn't see that happening. I think John was just being a little bit trying to be real creative. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing wrong with trying to get a utility patent. That's where I think most inventors want to be. But there's also nothing wrong with a design patent either. And in fact, I think far too few inventors get design patents. It's always shocked me that there's not more design patents, because if you have a product, it's tangible, it has an appearance. Design patents are much easier to get. They're much cheaper to get. It's still patented, so if you're going to sell it, you can still sell it as patented. And it's just very helpful. I mean, it prevents knockoffs and copycats and dupes, whatever the term is you want to use. And for many inventors, the intersection between counterfeiting and dupes and fakes and intellectual property and innovation is where they live in a world dominated really by Amazon and other online platforms. So design patents are great, and congratulations to you. And if
Thank you.
Any of you come to IP Watchdog, you can see Renee's dog toy, and her patent is prominently on display. But that also raises a question about Amazon, because you were for a very long time an Amazon seller, and you have had a lot of experience because of that dealing with trademark issues and so forth. But from the perspective of a reseller of authentic products, and you didn't have the most easy time, and it just shocked me because let's just face it, there are an awful lot of copycats, fakes, counterfeits, outright counterfeits being sold on Amazon and other platforms. And you were selling legitimate Hallmark Christmas ornaments, and they stopped you. Tell us your story there.
I absolutely love Hallmark ornaments. I had a whole bunch of my own. One of our neighbors had, her husband had passed away, and she had a big collection of them, and she was going to sell them at a yard sale. So I said, well, let me try and sell them on Amazon for you. So that's how I started. And I was shocked to see how well they did. So every year then after Christmas, I would go to every Hallmark store in the area, and I'd buy as many as I could get. And then the following year, I would start to sell them. And they were authentic. I bought them from Hallmark. I paid the same price that anyone else would have had they gone to the store. And then I resold them. And people would say that they were not real. And at one point, Amazon was not going to allow me to sell them because they said that I didn't get permission from Hallmark. But again, I was a reseller. And the other issue that I had with that, too, was Amazon kept trying to outprice me on them. So I kept lowering my prices, and they'd lower theirs. So there were a lot of issues that happened. And it was the problem was more from Amazon and some of the other, the buyers as well.
And it wasn't just that Amazon was trying to outprice you in a legitimate sense. You took a particular ornament that you were selling because you had a suspicion.
I did.
Can you tell us?
Absolutely. So if you do, if you've never sold on Amazon, there's a lot of intricacies to it. So when you ship the items yourself, you can price them however you want to. When you do it through Fulfilled by Amazon, where you ship it to them and then they ship it to the buyer, they bid against you. So I had a feeling that they were doing that, and I found an ornament that wasn't doing so well, and I decided, well, let me lower the price. So I lowered the price by $1. Amazon lowered theirs by $1.01. So then a little bit later, I decided, let me lower it by another 10 cents. They lowered theirs by 11. And they did this multiple times. And over about 3 hours' time, I had this ornament priced down to 10 cents. And they actually priced theirs at 9 cents to beat me out. It was the craziest thing.
Yeah, and that's predatory pricing, and that's the type of thing that is supposed to be illegal. And one of the reasons why I think Amazon historically has had some cloud of suspicion over them. It is what it is. Everybody uses Amazon. I'm not saying
I do too.
Boycott Amazon. I don't use Amazon myself personally anymore, not because of this issue, but because I just don't think you can have any reason to know what it is you're buying on Amazon. I've heard too many stories, had situations myself where you think you're buying one thing and something else comes. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that I wouldn't use Amazon if I know that there's a brand or a company that I'm familiar with that has an Amazon store. I think that's probably a good use of Amazon, but it's a Wild West, and that this whole experience with Amazon kind of opened my eyes to an awful lot of what really goes on. But it was good while it lasted. Like many things, you know, you and I, and this is one of the things we're very similar about, are entrepreneurs. And sometimes you're on a path, you can make some good money like we did with my invention, like you did with this Hallmark reselling. And, you know, the jig is up at some point. You got to move on and recreate yourself and so forth. And that's one of the things I think we've always done very well with IP Watchdog is recreate ourselves. And where we started with IP Watchdog at the very beginning with me just posting stuff that I was writing and then moving into doing the email and newsletter is a very different space. And then, as I mentioned, we started doing legal work, and you were essentially my office manager and paralegal, maybe not so much paralegal as much as you just ran the business, and I did the legal work. And then we had the financial collapse, and then that totally changed everything because we weren't bringing in the same clients or couldn't get clients. And a lot of things changed. And it was at that point that we turned it into a magazine, and increasingly into a media company. And I remember the very first time that somebody came to me and said, have you ever thought about doing webinars? And my answer was, in my head, was, what's a webinar?
I remember that.
And then, of course, like every entrepreneur that's out there, if you're hearing this, you know the right answer is, yes, we've thought about that. And in fact, we're working on doing that. And then they said, great, and we would love you to do it. We'd like to collaborate with you. We'd like to sponsor webinars. You know, you can promote it to your audience. You can moderate it. People like you and that sort of thing. And then that's become a big avenue for us from a business standpoint. There's two stories there. One, we could talk a little bit about the webinars and why you think it is that they work, you know, based on your marketing background. But then the other thing about just seeing opportunity in what it is that your customers and clients are asking you to do and saying yes rather than no.
So the reason why our webinars work is because they're customizable. You can do them in a way that is going to target the audience that you're looking to target. And what I tell everyone while I'm selling the webinars is we know our audience better than anyone else. So if they work with us, we can help guide them. So there's different ways that we can do the webinars. And in the beginning, we only ever did very substantive webinars. And we looked to always have a topic that was very interesting, very timely, very now, and having speakers that could speak to that. And then if it was, say, a service provider and they had software that could support the discussion, they could have screenshots and so forth. But with the inception of AI getting so big as it is today, and we have a lot of AI providers doing webinars with us, we're doing more webinars that are demo-based to a point. Because there are so many folks out there that want to know about what's going on with AI because it's growing so fast. And so rather than having to go and do demos with multiple different companies all over the place, they can come to our webinars and see what it is that we have. the ways that our webinars are so beneficial, again, like I said, is that, not only is it customizable, but we encourage our sponsors to ask questions of our webinar attendees, to have poll questions during the webinar, asking them about what it is that they're doing with AI, or what it is that they're doing with whatever the product is, and what they're interested in. And so the other benefit of the webinar is that you're not sharing the leads with other folks as well. And if it's a really interesting topic, you can get several hundred viewers. And also, you can also customize it for, say, you have a European audience that you're looking to reach out to. So the way that you mold the discussion can help decide who's coming as well.
So I do think that the webinars are great from the perspective, because we can get easily 200 to 300 people there while we're doing the webinar. And with certain webinars, we did one recently. We got close to, not quite, but close to 1,000 people that were registered for it. And I think it's certainly been a great opportunity for us. But I will admit that the reason why we didn't do these quote unquote demos, or what I've always pejoratively referred to as infomercials, is because I just didn't think anybody wanted to sit there and knowingly go to an infomercial. So I said substantive only, in part because sometimes when we kind of went up against the line where I thought maybe, we were doing a little show and tell at times, then people would start complaining and they would start dropping off. So we had a long-standing policy: substantive webinars only, no show and tell. And then, for reasons I still haven't been able to figure out, during COVID, things changed. Yes. And people, everybody understands, started consuming things differently. Now, far less in person, a lot of Google Meet, a lot of Teams, a lot of Zoom. And for whatever reason, when we do a webinar and we're not doing some level of show and tell, people start to complain, hey, are you going to show anything here? Are you going to show us how to do this? Are you going to? And so we've started doing that. And I think trying to do it less infomercial, but wait, there's more, and how do you actually do this? And they'll come up with data and they'll say, okay, well, show me the search you did to get that data and why you did it that way. So it's a little bit more substantive. But have you given any thought as to that? And I know this is not something that you and I have talked about really. This is the time of year when we always take a step back and start looking back on what happened and what lessons do we learn and what do we want to do in the new year. So this is a little brainstorming for us personally in front of many hundred of our friends in the audience. But have you given any thought as to why that is? What changed?
I do. Right now, there are so many different providers out there, and it goes back to the day when I used to sell, home show type things like Tupperware and Longaberger and that stuff. When you reach out to each individual company, you're being sold to by all those people. Now they all have your contact information, and you have to set up a demo, and then there's questions. But there's so much out there, and the people that are the decision makers, they don't have the time to go and set up an hour-long demo with each of these companies. Whereas if they know that a webinar is coming up and they can see what each of these providers has, it's less when there's 200, 300, 400 people on a webinar. It's not as
it's not as daunting.
Yeah, it's not as daunting. But not only that, I'm not being sold to constantly and asking questions. I get to just sit back and just look at what is being offered, what it has. Is it right for me? And I can make the decision without someone in my face asking me, so do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? So right. I think that is a big part of it, especially now with AI getting as big as it is. Everyone is dealing with AI. Even law firms are now creating their own AI software to give to their clients as well. So with there being so much out there, that's why people are going to the webinars to see the demos, because they get to see it from multiple different people without having to set up those demos and so forth. And it's shocking to me to see the level of decision makers from some of these companies that are coming to these webinars. It's not just their secretaries, which you always like to say, or paralegals. It's high level.
Yeah, our webinar audience is extremely high level, and that has always surprised me a little bit in a good way, and it makes me feel that what we're doing is valuable and worthwhile. The other thing I will say that has always shocked me is at the end of these webinars when we ask, would you like the sponsor to contact you? Sometimes it's for a free trial. Sometimes it's for some kind of an offer, or sometimes it's just, would you like to learn more about this particular product and how you could deploy it? The number of people that say yes, it shocks me in that there's got to be some kind of psychology going on that's different, because prior to COVID, again, that's not the case. That was not what we were seeing. But people have changed. Like, really, it is not just a moment in time when we all locked ourselves away from our support and were afraid of death, many of us, and, depressed. And I ate way too much and drank way too much, like so many other people around the world. But it's a moment in time where I don't think enough time has been spent to discuss what it is. How did people change the way that they consume information?
Well, I think it's because they changed the way that they do everyday life. Again, like you said, we used to pick up a phone and talk on a phone. Now we're in a video call. And in the beginning, if you remember, no one turned their cameras on. Well, we were already doing webinars all the time, so I always had my camera on. And people started doing that as well. So I think the fact that there were so many people working from home and they changed the way that they did things, and they had to pivot. They had to pivot because they weren't going out to meetings and meeting people. They weren't flying to different places and seeing people. So they had to come up with new ways to do things. And I think that's probably also why AI took off as it did when it did, because everyone was working on those things at the same time. So I think changing the way that we did our everyday work makes us more inclined to learn more about ways that we can do it more efficiently.
So, and you talk about pivoting, and we've talked about that. That maybe winds up going to be the theme of this conversation is the pivot from maybe an entrepreneurial standpoint, is what we've talked about so far, about seeing opportunity, seeing old opportunity kind of evaporate. One thing we hadn't talked about is how we used to be able to sell advertising on IPWatchdog.com, and that just has totally dried up because people are collecting information and viewing information and processing information online when they're reading very differently than they were a decade ago. So it's always being an entrepreneur and being a small company is always about pivoting, realizing when
flexibility,
but realizing when what you're doing is not working, and seeing hopefully in advance that it's starting to go down, and paying attention so that you're seeing, okay, this is starting to erode little by little. So what are we going to do? What opportunities are we going to identify moving forward? And one of the things that we have identified moving forward, and we've been doing it already for a number of years, is this programming, the live program to go along with our online program. So now we do have a physical presence, and not only do we have a physical presence at programs that we have done at hotels like everybody else, we have our own studio. It's about 10 minutes from Dulles International Airport. We host events there. We can host probably comfortably up to 120 people per event, the way that we're structured right now. In terms of having the computer desks and everybody gets a seat with the desk. We could go bigger if we ever go just into seating, and we have a lunchroom, and we do things a little bit differently. But as we've kind of gone through that, one of the programs that we started, I wanted to start, and I will say, as you know, I talk to a lot of people in the industry when we're going through this whole process. So one of the people who deserves a lot of credit for pushing us in the right direction on this one is Kathy Vidal. When she was director of the USPTO, I went to her and I said, look, I'm thinking about doing something, and I just need to pick your brain. And it's the Women's IP Forum. And I have always been wanting to try and find ways to give people opportunity. You and I, we both came from a situation where our fathers were laborers. My dad worked in a factory. Your dad was a plumber, and they provided for the family. But you and I, we came from not an awful lot, and built everything on our own, really, that we've achieved financially, at least, and our education and so forth. And it's because of some opportunities that some other people saw something in us, and they laid this out, and we jumped at it. So I've always wanted to try and look at I guess you would call underserved communities. I think that's the way people sometimes refer to it. What can we do to help these people and give them opportunity? Not equality of outcome, but give them an opportunity. And so she was very supportive. She was our first speaker. And I don't play any role other than producing behind the camera at the Women's IP Forum. And you were the person who sat and had a conversation with then director Kathy Vidal. And since then, you've started doing that a bit more. You've moderated webinars for us, and I think you've moderated a webinar for another group. You've spoken at our webinars. You moderated panels at other events. And I guess I'd like to ask you about that transition from being behind the camera to being in front of the camera. And I'll say one more thing, and then I'll shut up, because for me, it's a very hard transition. As you know, I am an introvert. That will probably shock a lot of people, but I am an introvert. And when I am around a lot of people, I need a lot of time to recharge my batteries. You, on the other hand, are the most happy extrovert that I've ever met, including early in the morning, where you'll say way too early in the morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And it's like, oh my God, turn it off. But you don't. You can't turn it off. And I think that serves you well. So there's a lot on the table right now. I did that on purpose. So now you can pick and choose where you want to go with this. How did you transition from behind the curtain to in front of the curtain? And do you like it?
So in the beginning, when we first started working together, yes, I was behind the scenes. And I am proud to say that I was the second person to ever write for IP Watchdog. And at the time I was writing about brand building and business development. And that was what I was helping you with working on. And, I did get recognized for that, but people didn't know who I was. I was behind the scenes. Now that we've been doing our events, it's funny. Sometimes I'll meet people and we've known each other for years and they say, this is the first time we've actually met. Yes. I am very much a people person. I am very extroverted. I get energized by people. I really enjoy making people smile. That's why I bake all the cookies for all of our events at IP Watchdog Studios. It's a lot of work, but I love it, and it makes people happy. I'm always looking to make people happy. It was, I wouldn't say difficult, but it was scary to transition to the front. I remember the first time that I sponsored a webinar, and it was a service provider had asked me to sponsor a webinar.
I think you moderate, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Moderate. Yes, sorry. The first time I moderated a webinar.
Because we don't charge you at IP Watchdog. We do pro bono work for Renee at IP Watchdog.
So the first time I moderated a webinar, and it was actually a women's focused webinar, I was so nervous because I knew I had to, and you do it all the time. So I'm like, if he can do it, I know I can. But I had
thanks.
to. Well, no, because you've always told me about the troubles that you had, and if you were able to get past your fears to be as good as you are, I figured I can do it too. And so I was very nervous. I was worried because not only did I have to pay attention to what all the speakers were saying and come up with questions to ask them, keep the conversation going in the right direction, but also had to pay attention to the questions that were being asked in the Q&A box and figuring out the right time to weave them in. And the first time I did that webinar, it really gave me an appreciation for what you do at least once to twice every single week with the webinars. So that's what I meant. It was actually a compliment to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But it was nerve-wracking. It was scary. And the first time that I moderated a panel at the IP Watchdog Women's Forum, I was nervous about that too. But if you recall at the beginning when you talked about this program, you were originally going to moderate. And I said, well, if you want to have a real women's program, you need to step back and let the others do it. And I think it came out amazing because you do such a great job of keeping things going in the right direction. And you can ask questions as well, rather than always having to be the moderator. So yeah, it was scary for me, but I think that I did pretty well. Nervous as heck when I'm up there. Everyone says they can't tell, which is, I guess, pretty good. Mm-hmm. I like trying new things. I like learning new things. I'm always looking to learn new things and challenge myself. And this was, let me tell you, that was a challenge.
Yeah. So let me go back to I was going to moderate the women's program, and I think it's worked out better that I don't. But the reason why I was thinking about doing that was part of what I was trying to do here with the Women's IP Forum, and I think we're going to, moving forward, I don't know on what timetable, so maybe I shouldn't say it, but I'll say it anyway. We're going to try and do replicate that in other ways. One of the things I have in my head is potentially to do something with younger attorneys. Maybe young is not the right way to say it. Maybe it's level of experience. Maybe people who are under 10 years, maybe senior associates, junior partner level type people, rising star kind of thing. And as I've thought about what I would do with these programs to give that opportunity to those people, younger people, and then to women who have not maybe had the opportunity previously to speak on programs, is I do a better service to them by just treating them like everybody else. You know, this is just another one of our programs where Gene moderates, because we come our programs, not the IP Watchdog Live, where we're going to have this year for 2026, we're probably going to have 40 to 45 panels. But when we do a program at IP Watchdog Studios, and we have 8 to 10, maybe 12 panels across 2.5 days, I do moderate most of them. And so I didn't want it to change to say, oh, this is different. You're different. And I didn't know what the right answer was, but I do think we came to a great opportunity we identified you can moderate, occasionally can talk Eileen into moderating a panel, our editor-in-chief, and we have identified a number of women who are very good moderators. So I think that's been good. But that was kind of what was going on in my mind. And I'm happy that I listened to you and you gave me that advice, because I do think it works better as a 100% all-women's program. But the one question that you didn't answer is whether you wanted to continue doing moderating and continue to be in front of the curtain. Do you like it well enough to do more?
I do. The thing is, I'm also running the programs as well. I have a great staff and they do a phenomenal job. But the biggest challenge I had this time was there's so many little jobs that I do during our events, such as taking pictures of each of the panels afterwards and making sure that stuff is all taken care of. And I had to wear another hat in doing the moderating and panels and following schedules and so forth. And so I actually forgot certain things that I needed to do. But when you make mistakes, you learn from them. So I think the next time will be much easier for me. Yes, I actually really did enjoy moderating the panels. I really enjoy being in the spotlight a bit. When I look over at you as you're sitting there watching us and I see a smile on your face, and it just makes me feel good to know that, you've got my back and I've got your support. And, I've spoken at events in the past, so I spoke for the USPTO many years ago in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Well, that's not usually how you tell that story. Tell it the way you normally tell that story. About how you were actually...
Oh, yes. So yes. So I like to tease Gene. I like to tease you and tell you that the USPTO asked me to speak before they asked you to. I thought that was pretty cool. Gosh, I don't even remember what year that was, 2010, 2011, something along those lines.
It's a long time ago.
A long time ago. But I spoke at the Women's IP, it was not the IP Forum, it was the Women's Symposium.
A business symposium.
It was a women's symposium in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Well, see, that's what I always like to tell you. They invited you to Shreveport, Louisiana, which is a beautiful once you get there, but there is no easy way to get to Shreveport.
Yeah, but it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And it felt good. Part of my issue, and I like to share my experiences with young women as well. So this is something that's been very beneficial for me as far as the women's program goes, is that even though I am older than a lot of our rising stars, I'm in the same boat as them. I'm trying things for the first time that never had the experience or opportunity to do. And so I can share that with them. But you are an extremely intelligent person. Again, when we first met, I didn't know what intellectual property was. we have a son who's also very intelligent. And even though I am educated, I don't have the memories that you guys do and the knowledge that you guys do. And, I'm more of a tinker. I'm more of a hands-on person. So I never felt as intelligent as I really am. And so having opportunities to speak at programs or to moderate panels has given me the opportunity to shine a bit and to know that I really do have a lot to offer more than just baking cookies, although I do that pretty good. Yeah. So I feel that this has given me a great opportunity, not only just for myself, but also as a liaison between those young rising star women and the more seasoned women. And because again, I share the experiences with the younger ones, but I also have more experience in other ways as the more seasoned women. So I've really enjoyed it.
Well, I do think you're very intelligent, and I appreciate your input and guidance. I don't make any business decisions without asking you first, and it's not just because I'm afraid that you're going to beat me with a rubber hose. Although maybe there's a little bit of that, but you have a lot of really good thoughts, and I know we've joked with you over time. People will get this joke is that you're like the Penny character from Big Bang when we all get together. But if you remember, by the end, Penny was really smart. It had rubbed off on Penny. So I think we're rubbing off on you in that regard. But you're intelligent in a lot of ways where I'm not, and I think that's why it works so well.
We balance each other very well, and I think that's where we had our epiphany when we finally realized that, you have strengths that I don't, and I have strengths that you don't. And when we paired that together, we create these incredible programs together.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a great journey. And hopefully we'll do a lot more of that. And one last thought on the women's program is it's not just about the young women. And that's one of the things I think that does make it work really well. Is that we have women on all different levels. You in the middle, which you're a very experienced businesswoman, maybe newer to the IP stuff, but certainly not new to the IP stuff from the business perspective. I mean, you've been dealing with this stuff, and as we talked about, Amazon and other things for a very, very long time. But we have such great women in our industry who are very seasoned, the top of the top 1% who we've been very lucky to get to know and have a part of this program. And I think that's why it works.
I agree.
So I appreciate you spending some time talking with us and letting our audience get to know you a little bit better here today. In the last few minutes that we have before we'll wrap this up, is there anything that you wish I had asked you? There's actually one thing I know. You did kind of allude to it. We're very proud that you were mentioned in the America's Who's Who recently. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And but is there anything else that comes to mind that a question that you wish I had asked?
I gotta think about that one.
So you're saying I did a perfect job?
I wouldn't say perfect, but no, you did a very good job. No, I can't think of anything really, honestly.
Okay. Well, that's great. I really appreciate your time here today. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to IP Watchdog Unleashed. We will be back next week, and we hope you will join us again. In the meantime, please be sure to visit IPWatchdog.com to read all the latest news and information about what is happening in the intellectual property world. And also be sure to subscribe to our free daily email newsletter.